Hello and welcome. To those of you who I haven't met, I'm Faye McGill and I'm Deputy Director of the Thames Gateway Teaching School Hub. The following information video is in response to a number of queries that we've had from head teachers and senior leaders across the county with regards to the Early Headship Coaching Programme and the new suite of NPQs. So we are lucky enough, very happy to welcome Nicola Taylor, who is Director of Programmes at Leadership Learning South East, or ELSI as you may know it, and she's going to answer the questions that you have posed to me at Thames Gateway. So hello, nice to see you, Nicola.
Hi.
Try not to give you too much of a grilling. We can start with the Early Headship Coaching Offer, because I know there's lots of questions about that we've had. So easy one to start with, I hope. Can you explain who the Early Headship Coaching Offer is aimed at?
Absolutely. So the Early Headship Coaching Offer, or ECHO, as I'm probably going to refer to it going forwards. I know the letters are around the wrong way, but the sounds are the same. The ECHO programme is really aimed at those people who are within the first 5 years of their headship and have either already completed an NPQH, whether that's one of the legacy NPQH or the new NPQH, or those people that are currently undertaking an NPQH. So first 5 years of headship, have already got the NPQH or are already studying for the NPQH. That's who it's aimed at. And it's really providing people with an opportunity to just have some additional space and time for themselves in terms of their own professional development, because we know that in that first 5 years, it's really easy to concentrate on the needs of others within your school community. But this provides you with that time and space to really think about your own professional development.
Thank you. And in addition to that time and space, can you tell us a little bit about the sort of subjects or the areas the course might cover?
Absolutely. So the approach that we're taking at ELSI is one where we've come up with a blended programme. There's an opportunity for people to join the course at various points in the year. So you're not just tied to a September or an October start on that course. And we provide a number of different ways of getting involved. So the programme involves 4 school visits. And those school visits take place across an academic year, and they focus on different aspects of school leadership. There'll be an opportunity to visit somebody else's school, undertake a tour of that location, and talk about a specific element of school leadership, whether that be something like culture or teaching, learning and assessment, and how that plays that practice out in that school and the real challenges that those leaders have faced within their own context. The second element is really about engaging with research and engaging with the work of other leaders nationally and internationally. So we will be running a series of 4 webinars over the course of the academic year as well. Those will be open to all of the participants who are taking part in the ECHO programme. And there'll be an opportunity to come together with some real key players within the field of education to understand the latest ideas, latest experiences, and really engage with some of that evidence and research. We've also got an online learning platform where we'll be pointing people to a number of different pieces of research, just broadening that people's opportunities to engage with that evidence base and making sure that it's a one-stop shop really for people, so they haven't got to trawl the internet for their own ideas and research, but we've put together some of those latest publications for people to be able to access really quickly. There's also a discussion forum that is open to all of the participants, and again that's open nationally, so that's an opportunity to hear from people who are in the same situation as you, perhaps locally, but also people who are perhaps leading in schools further afield that you might not have come into contact with previously. And then as the course name explains, there's also a coaching element to the course as well. So there's an opportunity to work with your own executive coach and really focus in on some of the challenges that you're facing in your own school context. So there's a number of different features to the programme and a number of different opportunities to build that sense of community, to not feel so isolated in your headship, and to learn from the experience of others.
Great, thank you. Sounds very interesting. How much will it cost the school or the individual to take part?
So that's the great thing about the NPQs at the moment, and particularly about the ECHO. It's free to people to access so long as they're working in the maintained sector. So if your school is funded by the Department for Education, then your time on the ECHO will also be funded by the Department for Education. So it's not something that comes with an additional cost for people.
Perfect bonus in these trying times. you mentioned what the course looked like and the various different components of it. What's the time or the expected time commitment for a head teacher?
So we've been really aware of this, and really aware and conscious of the fact that people want to be in their schools. They want to be dedicating their time to making a difference on the ground. So we've limited the amount of time that people would need to take out of school. Obviously, those 4 school visits would be something that would require people to take a little bit of time out of their own school. We're working with Thames Gateway to make sure that we've got a range of those opportunities available locally. So this isn't something where we'd be expecting you to travel to Birmingham or Manchester, or get on a plane and travel to Dubai, unfortunately, to see some of that school experience, but something that would be on your doorstep, so to speak. So there are 4 of those school visits, and so that's 4 days out of school across an academic year. The webinars are going to be around 2 hours, and again, we'll make video recordings available of those as well. So if people can't access that in real time, they'll still be able to access the recording. So that would be another 4 times 2 hours that people would be expected to take out of the school day to be able to participate in the programme.
And I guess ultimately, although it's quite clear from what you've been describing, if I was a new head, I would sort of be asking, well, how's it going to help me? How's it going to improve my headship?
Yeah, so I think you're reverting back to that idea that we don't want people to feel like they're in this job on their own. We don't want people to feel like this is something where you have to have all of the answers at your fingertips, or you have to be, able to answer all of the questions straight away. So the real benefit from this course is going to come in making those relationships with other people, being able to experience the practice that's happening in other schools. There's nothing quite like the professional development that comes from going and visiting somebody else, seeing how they do things that might not be appropriate for your own school, but it gives you that opportunity to reflect, to pose questions for yourself, to pose challenges to yourself, and to really think about how you might want to adapt some of the practices that you've seen in that school in order to be able to make your own school environment that little bit better. I guess another benefit is that opportunity to engage with research and keep yourself up to date, and do that in a way that is manageable, both in terms of your time, but also in terms of your attention. So we will work with the online platform to make sure that all of that documentation that's coming out of the Department for Education, that's coming out of the Education Endowment Foundation, as well as other credible sources, is available to you really easily and quickly, and in a way that you can manage, so that you can refer back to it over time. And that opportunity to work with a coach, I think, is invaluable. I think we are finally in a position as an education profession where we don't see coaching in a deficit model. We see it as something that is part of managing your own mental well-being. It's about managing your workload, and it's about managing the pressures that come with being the person where the buck stops, and having that opportunity to talk to somebody that you're not accountable to, that isn't your chair of governors, that isn't your school improvement advisor, but somebody that can act as that critical friend and help you work through tricky situations, or even just work through the day-to-day challenges, I think is really important. So I think there are a number of benefits to being able to take part in this programme.
Lovely. Thank you, Nicola. So moving away then from the early headship offer and on to the specialist NPQs. So we know that they changed last year. So we've got leading behaviour and culture, leading teacher development, and leading teaching. And in February, Thames Gateway will be offering leading literacy as well, new suite. Can you just talk a little bit about what staff are most suitable to apply for that specialist band of NPQs?
Yeah, I think there's a bit of a myth circulating still that these are middle leader professional qualifications. And I think that's definitely not the case when it comes to the specialist qualifications. Whilst they are appropriate for people who are potentially in a middle leadership position. So, for example, the leading teaching qualification is really relevant to those people that are leading perhaps a department or a phase or a subject. The leading teaching development and the leading behaviour and culture are just as relevant to people who are working in a senior leadership team and who've got that authority and autonomy to be able to act on things like the approach you're going to take to professional development for your staff, or the approach that you're going to take to managing culture, behaviour and well-being. And I really would urge people to have a look at the NPQ framework documents. So those are like the specifications that identify the different learn that and learn how to statements that people will cover as part of those courses. The The other thing that I would just say on that is that they don't necessarily have to be done by just one person in your organisation. We've got schools that we're working with where they've maybe looked at putting 3 or 4 of their middle leaders on the leading teaching qualification, or 2 or 3 staff from across a trust of schools together on the leading behaviour and culture, so that you're really developing that shared language, shared expectation, and that shared evidence base to be working from as well.
Perfect, thank you. We've had a few inquiries about workload, the workload associated with the NPQ and kind of impacting on the day job, as you like. So can you sort of talk us through what the expectations are in terms of workload for the specialist NPQs?
Absolutely. And again, this is something that we were really conscious of, and something that was highlighted as part of our recent Ofsted monitoring visit as well, that we'd really taken the time to understand people's workload and understand the pressures that people were under when they were taking on an additional qualification. The contrite answer, I suppose, to that question is, it's a bit like thinking about somebody studying for a GCSE or an A-level. You can do it in quite a short amount of time, or you can spend quite a long time investing in that professional development or that level of course. We have structured the course and the curriculum in such a way that people should only be taking around about 2 hours a week in terms of their study time to be able to engage in the online learning activities. That said, there is an element of reading involved, and there is an element of writing involved. What we've done with the online materials is we've provided people with executive summaries of the evidence that and research that they're going to be accessing. And some people will only engage with that executive summary because it's evidence that they're already familiar with, or it's a piece of research that they may well have read before, and that executive summary is sufficient. Some people may find that they actually want to go into a bit more depth and detail and access the original source material, which we also provide. But obviously, it's going to take you slightly longer to read a 16-page document than it is to read an executive summary. And likewise with the learning journal, we specify the questions that we would like you to consider as part of your learning journal activities or your discussion activities. We expect bullet point answers, and we expect people to write succinctly. However, if you choose to write War and Peace in answer to some of the questions, or you choose to delve into something a bit more because it really is pertinent to your own school practice, it's going to take you slightly longer to answer those questions. So I guess in brief, it should be taking about 2 hours a week outside of the day job, if you like. But what we have found, and what was commented on in our Ofsted report, was that people are finding that it creates built-in efficiencies. So the more you learn, the more you try things out, the more you understand, the more efficient you become in your role over time.
Perfect, which ties nicely into my next question. The old system obviously had a project attached to it, and lots of people are familiar with that and may have been through that themselves. Mm-hmm. The new suites don't have a project, they have a final assessment, which is online, as we know. Will that make it harder for heads to measure the impact within their school, or to see the impact in their school?
So again, this was something we were really conscious of in our curriculum design. What we didn't want was to be packaging and producing something that was akin to reading a book. We wanted these courses to actually come to life, and we wanted people to be able to see the impact of their learning in their current context and with the people that they're working with currently. So although there is no assessed element of project work, a lot of the activities that we ask people to engage with and the work that we ask them to do as a follow-up to their face-to-face sessions or their webinars is about practical activity in their own workplace. So that might be running a trial professional development session. That might be running a meeting with a group of senior colleagues around the behaviour policy and its effective implementation. That might be going and having a conversation with your business manager, your school business manager, about how the budget works and how to efficiently manage that. But we've built in as many opportunities as we can to make sure that there are practical activities for participants to be able to play out in their own school context, so that there is that real-time impact on pupils and on pupil outcomes.
Perfect. And lastly, just about the specialist NPQs, is there a cost involved for schools, and what is it?
So again, if you are in a state-maintained school or college or a specialist provision, then they are free at the point of access. And if you're not too sure about that and whether you qualify or not, then you can get in touch with us and we can check the database and make sure that we can answer questions around funding. What I would say is that there is additional support that has been offered to small schools, and that comes in the form of a £200 bursary paid to the school. You are a small school by the DfE definition if you had 600 pupils or fewer on roll in the July census of 2022. And again, if you're not sure whether your school qualifies as a small school or not, we're able to check the database and confirm that for you. So they are free to the majority of people if you're in a state-maintained school, and if you're in a school of 600 pupils or fewer, then it comes with an additional £200 per person who undertakes an NPQ qualification.
And am I right in saying that funding is guaranteed for this academic year and next academic year?
That's right. At the moment, there is a 2-year guarantee on that.
Great. So moving swiftly on then to the leadership NPQs. I promise I won't keep you much longer.
That's okay.
So for the leadership NPQs, do staff need to be in a whole school leadership role to access those courses? So the senior leadership, the headship and the executive leadership.
So it's either about being in that position where you're undertaking that role currently, or you have an aspiration to undertake that role. So, for example, you may have people who are assistant head teachers and new into that role, and therefore they would qualify because their current role and their current job description is about them working at a whole school level. You may well have middle leaders who are particularly keen to pursue a career in senior leadership, who aspire to a place on a senior leadership team, and therefore they would come under that criteria as an aspirant senior leader.
Thank you. Obviously, head teachers are concerned about supporting the member of staff who's undertaking the course, and there were questions around how the in-school coaching works for the leadership NPQ. So can you just talk us through that, please?
Absolutely. So we ask that each of our participants identifies an in-school coach at the point of their application. And that's really somebody that they can work with on quite a regular basis, and they can work with independently to help them reflect on the knowledge and understanding that they're gaining and the impact that the course is having. So in some cases, it may be most appropriate that is their line manager. In other cases, it may well be another nominated member of staff who doesn't have line management and accountability responsibility for that participant. It could be somebody on your governing body if you felt that was appropriate, but it needs to be somebody that will have the time and space to be able to meet regularly with that participant and support them to reflect on their learning and their journey and their progression as a leader. Each of our modules within the leadership qualifications lasts for 12 weeks. And we identify within those 12 weeks where the coaching is most appropriately carried out. And we provide the participant with a series of questions that they may well want to take along to their coach when they're meeting with the coach. Same with the leadership specialist qualifications as well. We identify when the coaching is most appropriate. We give a series of suggested questions and activities that they might want to undertake with their coach. But we do believe that this is open coaching rather than directed coaching, and so an opportunity to work with people. But it's around about 45 minutes a session, up to 90 minutes a session in terms of working with your in-school coach.
And I think it's just worth adding, Nicola, that both LC and Thames Gateway are happy to support that coaching process within the school. So if you've got someone in the school that's new to coaching, but you want to develop in the role, both organisations will offer support and training for that role if that's a gap you've identified.
Absolutely, yeah, definitely.
Is the assessment of the course, the leadership NPQ, is going to take place in school time?
Right, that's a very good question. So all of these qualifications, whether they're specialist or leadership qualifications, have a slightly different assessment practice now. So there are some assessment windows that have been identified by the Department for Education. And within that assessment window, the setting of the assessment, the completing of the assessment, the moderation and the awarding of the award all take place in that 3 months. So what will happen is when that window opens, the participant will log into the system that they've been using to complete their course. They will be able to read the assessment questions. So they'll have a case study, which will be a fictional school, which will be described. They'll then have a series of questions to answer in relation to that case study, drawing on knowledge and evidence that they've gained from their qualification and from their studies. And they have an 8-day period in which they can complete that assessment and upload the assessment. Now, that sounds like quite a lot of work over quite an extended period of time, but it is essentially an open book assessment. So the reason for having those 8 days is so that people can go back and refer to their notes and refer to their learning. The assessment itself has a very strict word limit. So it's the word limits are set out on our website so that people can see what they're writing, but in no case is it more than 2,500 words in total for the assessment to be able to answer the 3 questions. And people just have to make sure that they've uploaded their answers by midday on the 8th day of that assessment window. So people could choose to dedicate time to that during the school day, and they could be provided with time if that works within the structure of their school. However, it is possible for people to complete that work outside of the school day, and we've made sure that there's a provision of a weekend as well, although there's no expectation that people would be working at the weekend.
Perfect. Thank you, Nicola. Can I ask just about the facilitation? So who facilitates the courses, and is there scope for my school to get involved in facilitation?
Absolutely. And this is where we're really working in partnership with Thames Gateway, because what we want to do is make sure that each of our courses is facilitated by 2 people. And we work very closely with Thames Gateway to make sure that those people have got relevant and recent experience in the area that they are facilitating on. And that they've really got that opportunity to support their participants along that journey. So it's not about just coming into contact with them during the face-to-face sessions or the webinar sessions. It's about really supporting their journey for the duration of the course, whether that be 12 months or 18 months. We're always looking for facilitators. So if it's something that people would be interested in doing, then I would suggest the first port of call is to get in touch with yourselves at Thames Gateway. We've got a series of facilitator competencies that we share, that we have as a set of expectations that we expect people to be able to uphold. But we also provide extensive training and support for people through that journey of facilitation.
And lastly, for me, I'm sure there's a number of heads that are watching this, or senior leaders that are watching this and thinking, wow, actually, this sounds really exciting, and working very closely with you and working very closely with the NPQ delegates. I know that firsthand. So if a school wanted to get involved, how else can they get involved in kind of this national professional qualification and the associated circles?
Yeah, so we're really keen that our curriculum materials are not something that is just marking a moment in time, but they actually remain relevant and grow over the course of the period of the contract for the course delivery. So if you have had a look at the National Professional Qualification Framework documents, and you can see an area that you think, actually, do you know what, our school does that really well, or we've been on a really interesting journey with that particular challenge or that particular element of school leadership or curriculum design or pedagogy development over time with members of staff. We're really interested in hearing people who would be interested in supplying us with a case study, undertaking an interview like this, where we could record the outcome of that interview and share it with our participants, and really get involved in the refinement and addition to the materials that we've got on offer to people as part of the courses.
Perfect. Thank you very much for your time, Nicola. And as I said, if anyone else has any questions, then please feel free to email in at Thames Gateway, or to email Nick Taylor at Elsie, and I'll put those details at the end of the video. Many thanks for your time, Nicola.
Thanks.